Konnichiwa everybody, welcome back. Got a bit of a cold unfortunately, but we'll press on. If there's any pauses I'm going to have a coughing fit. So if there's any jump cuts it's because I've been coughing my guts up. Collection video today. The fantastic Vectrex. Magnificent console. I never knew of these, to be honest, when I was a kid. Totally passed me by. I don't know. I must have never seen it in the Argos catalogue. If that was in them, I don't know. But I never knew anyone who had one at school. Wasn't aware of it myself. I think I first got aware of it about 25 years ago maybe. Maybe 20 I would guess. Started looking into it, and I think it was a few years later before I actually bought one. I think it was around, you know, 06 maybe, 07 I bought one. And I got into buying a few of them, sort of in bundles, and I ended up selling quite a few, and keeping bits I wanted, and as we all do. But bought and sold quite a few of them over the years on that basis, and ended up keeping this one. I think it was at the time it was the best one I'd come across in condition terms, so I kept this one. I did at a later point have a lovely boxed one, and the box was in really nice condition as well, but ultimately I sold that, and I regret that now. Knowing the crazy prices of these have gone to, I wished I'd kept that boxed one, because I don't think the console itself was any better, but it was just the fact it had a nice box. But at the time I cashed it in for the money, at the time. I think I sold it for around 300 quid if I remember right, which at the time was a lot of money. I mean, it's still fair whack now, I know, but I think a boxed one would cost you more than that now. However, I'm chuffed I've kept this one. Now, obviously, it's got a massive homebrew scene, which I've never really dipped my toe in the water of. So it's kind of something I'd like to get into in the future. Not massively, but I'd just like to pick up the odd one. I've only got one that I've picked up quite recently. But of all the original games, there's around 20, but that's not including like the specific ones you need, like a light pen or the 3D imager for. So if you just got to discount them, there's around 20 of original sort of official releases. Now over the years I've had them all when I was, like I say, buying and selling these bundles. And I've had some in lovely condition as well, but over the years, you need some money, and unfortunately a lot of them had to go to fund other things. And I look back now and I think, wow, you could have had a beautiful full set of original games in really nice condition, because I've like I say, over the years I've had them all, and it's only looking back now you think, you idiot, you should have kept them. But it is what it is. But like I say, there's around 20 games if you discount them light pen and 3D imager games, which I've never actually had myself. But I've now got about half of them. I think I've got 11 of the original release games. There's some of them I don't particularly want, to be fair. I've also got a multi-cart, which is what's in now. So we'll just load that up so there's something running. We've got Hyper Chase running, as you can see, because we've got the Hyper Chase overlaying. Cool little racing game, Hyper Chase. And obviously, I'm sure you're aware, but all games come with these screen overlays, which dramatically improve the performance to me. It don't add anything to the game, but it's just the aesthetic nature of having the overlay transforms it for me. I refuse to buy a game unless I've got the overlay, to be honest. It adds so much to the experience for me. It's such a cool idea. They just slot in the front of the screen like that now. Almost transfers the Vectrex console into a different sort of tabletop arcade game each time you change the overlay. Cool little racer, Hyper Chase, much in the mould of like Enduro. But because you've got the control is analog control, it works quite well with Hyper Chase. And you've got accelerate, brake, gears up and down on the 4 buttons, so it really works well. That is one. I haven't got Hyper Chase, in a standalone form in its original box. That's one I do want to find again. So at the moment, like I say, I'm running it on this multi-cart. Because there's about 6 games on this multi-cart which I haven't got in standalone form. One of them being Star Castle, which is a really good game. I think that was an American only release. I've never actually owned that one. But anyway, I've got one homebrew game, which you might remember I've picked up quite recently, and it's Viazon. Really cool game. Kind of like a Galaxians Galaga type game. Really good, I've got to say. I was impressed with that, if I'm honest. So it was cool to get. However, the original games. Now, unfortunately, like I say, I've sold most of the best ones I had over the years, and I've left myself with some which the boxes aren't fantastic, if I'm honest. And I've also over the years bought some cart onlys, because the prices of this stuff, has gone quite mad recently, Vectrex. And I don't see it falling anytime soon, to be honest. I can only see it getting more and more expensive. So, I'll quite happily buy a cart only as long as it's got the overlay with it. That said, you can get some magnificent reproductions now, and you can buy overlays for any that you're missing. And to be honest, they're so good, you can't really tell the difference. This Hyper Chase overlay is a reproduction, and it's excellent quality, I've got to say. And on the same front, you can buy reproduction boxes. Again, they are excellent quality. They're not quite the same as the originals, but they'll do me. So if I can buy a cart only with an overlay, or even just a cart only, I can buy a repro box and an overlay if necessary, and it really looks quite nice on the shelf. Now this first one is a repro box. We've got Armour Attack. I don't know what I think about the actual Vectrex boxes, to be honest. The front artwork and the spine artwork is quite nice, but the back's rubbish in my opinion. I mean, there's nothing on it. They're all the same, just with the individual game title difference. But I do quite like the spines on the shelf. But they're all the same form, just with a different game title, and then you get the picture on the front of the box of the actual game, which is like you see on screen viewed through the overlay. Now Armour Attack's a really cool sort of tank battle game, much like Berserk, I suppose, in a tank. It's really, really good. So that's the first one I've got, Armour Attack. I don't know where to put these, didn't think about that. Then these first few are all in repro boxes, to save keep saying it again, because they're all in really nice condition, so that probably gives it away. Next up we've got Fortress of Narzod. Now this is kind of a tunnel shooter, if you like. You're this sort of, I don't know, what you call it, a tank type, spacecraft type thing at the bottom, and the enemies come down the tunnel, and you sort of move left and right and shoot them. You do find with a lot of original Vectrex games, they are kind of a variation of the same theme in a lot of cases. But this is one of the better games in my opinion. Fortress of Narzod, really good shooter. Definitely want to check out. Now next up, this one's a bit unique. We've got Flipper Pinball. Now I'm not a massive pinball guy really. but I don't think this is done too badly on the Vectrex, considering what what you're playing it on, and vector graphics. I mean, vector graphics are so cool, which really I think has made the Vectrex such a cool item nowadays because it's so unique and it does something that nothing else does. It's magnificent. But it does work quite well rather for a pinball game, and that's maybe better than you think. Next up, we've got Cosmic Chasm. Now this one, I suppose there's quite a few games like this on the Vectrex. Kind of a variation of Asteroids, if you like, I suppose. There's quite a few of them. Not a bad game. I wouldn't say it was one of the better ones, but it's not bad. That's Cosmic Chasm. And next up, I would say this is probably my favourite game on the Vectrex. Magnificent game. And we've got Spike. Stunning. And the speech on this is out of this world. Really, honestly, a fantastic game. It's a platform game where you're Spike, you've got to rescue your girlfriend, and you've got to climb up a series of platforms on ladders, avoiding the bad guys. And like I say, there's some magnificent speech during the game. It blew me away when I first played it. I couldn't believe, the speech quality, brilliant. And I think, like I say, Spike, probably my favourite game on the Vectrex. Certainly up there anyway. Right, then next up, last one in the repro box, and we've got the classic Scramble. I'm sure everybody's played Scramble. Works really well on the Vectrex with the vector graphics. Obviously side-scrolling sort of shooter at the same time as bombing ground-based enemies. You obviously had the tabletop LCD version back in the 80s. I mean, you can't go wrong with Scramble. Fantastic. We've then got my original boxed games, which are not in great condition if I'm honest. However, first one we've got is Rip-Off. Now again, this is kind of an Asteroids style game. Like I say, there's a few of these, but again, this is quite good, I think. You might be able to, obviously, condition apart, you can kind of tell. Don't get me wrong, these repro boxes are brilliant. They're on Etsy if you want to buy them, as are the overlays, which you can buy for all different kind of games and sort of homebrew games as well. But these modern ones have got a lovely gloss finish, but the original ones differ in the fact they are like a more silver and metallic finish, where the repro ones are like a gloss grey. Obviously easier to produce, I would imagine, than this style. So there is that difference, but to be honest, it looks fine on the shelf, and I'm more than happy with that, to be honest. And at least they are all in beautiful brand new condition. But yeah, that's Rip-Off anyway. Then next up, another classic. We've got Clean Sweep. Now I've left the Woolies label on this for two reasons. It's an absolute bugger to try and get off, but I quite like the nostalgia of having the Woolworths sticker on, because I think these at the time in the UK were mainly retailed in Woolworths. Anyway, Clean Sweep, yeah, it's a Pac-Man clone, and quite a good one in my opinion. Quite a common game on the Vectrex. It tends to be one of the cheaper ones, or at least it was the last time I looked for any. But I've really got into Pac-Man lately, so this is really good. And there's really nothing else like it at the time, in the original releases on the Vectrex. So I'd definitely say Clean Sweep is one to check out. Now this next one is probably the best condition one I've got in its original box, and we've got Starhawk. Now this is quite a cool game. This is basically the Death Star run from Star Wars. That's essentially the game. So kind of a 3D shooter where the enemy's approaching you just like you're flying down the trench in the Death Star. But obviously there's no Star Wars sort of themes or endorsements for this game. That it's a blatant copy, but it's a good game, don't get me wrong. So I'm sure if you're watching this, you're bound to like Star Wars and you're bound to, you know, appreciate that theme. So I would say Starhawk is definitely one to check out. Right, we've only got two left. Another classic. Now this would have been an arcade port at the time, and we've got Berserk. Fantastic original Atari game, and this is a great version on the Vectrex. I've got to say, you can't really go wrong with this. Fantastic. Obviously, I'm sure you know, it's a bit of a maze sort of dungeon crawler, if you like, where you've got the walls as protection, but you've got to basically shoot all the bad guys before they shoot you, and then you can get off the screen to the next one via the exits. Cracking game. And then the last one I've got, now this is kind of with Spike, as it's Spike or this as my favourite Vectrex game. I kind of flip between the two, and we've got Web Warp. Now I particularly like this because this is essentially a Tempest clone, as I'm sure you can see from the box. It's exactly the same as Tempest in the fact you've got to sort of fly around the edge of the web and the enemies are approaching you down the web just like they are in Tempest. Fantastic. Love this. I mean, it's a shame actual Tempest wasn't released at the time, but this is, you know, this will do. Absolute quality game, Web Warp. So I'm chuffed I've got that one, and I did keep that one in its original form. So yeah, I think I've got, like I say, 11. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Yeah, I've got 11 plus that homebrew one. And then, like I say, on the multicart, if I just actually to reset itself back to the, I don't know if it'll show up on the screen, but you can see I think it's a 14 in 1. So it's got armour attack, Bedlam, which is another original release, and that's kind of another Asteroids clone. You've obviously got Mindstorm built into the console, which is Asteroids essentially, and that's a cracking game, I've got to say. But we've got Berserk, we've got Clean Sweep, we've got Cosmic Chasm, Hyper Chase, as I've already talked about, and then we've got Mindstorm 2, which is basically, I think there's a bug in the original Mindstorm basically, and they cleaned it up, and Mindstorm 2 is essentially the original Mindstorm without the bug, which is on here. And we've got Rip Off, which I've already got, and Scramble. Then we've got Solar Quest, which is a game I haven't got, which is essentially a 3D shooter, sort of space themed, you know, it's Star Warsy, I suppose. Not a bad game. I don't think I'm not so bothered about the 3D ones, if I'm honest. Space Wars, again, that's a 3D sort of space shooter style game. Star Castle, now that is really good. And then we've also got Starhawk, and then Star Trek, which is another 3D space shooter, known as Starship in the UK. It's only got the Star Trek license in America, which is the same game under different names. But Star Castle, this is a great game, I've got to say. I need to get myself an overlay for this. But essentially, it's kind of like Mindstorm in the fact you fly the ship. I don't know if you know if that's picking up on the camera, but you fly the ship around the screen, and you've got to destroy this base in the middle without getting hit by shooting all the different layers in the base without getting hit, and then your ultimate aim is to kill the sort of enemy base in the middle. But honestly, really good game. I just need the overlay. But yeah, that's there are a few others, like I say, which I haven't got. Most I've mentioned on there. There's also Heads Up Soccer, or Soccer Football it's called in the UK. That's terrible. There's NFL Blitz, which is kind of okay, but not something I was bothered about keeping. I think the others I've mentioned, outside of the light pen and 3D games and the melody games. But really, these days, it's the homebrew where this is at, and you know, there's all the multi-carts you can get with more games on them as well. So, like I say, I'd like to add a few more in the future going forward, because the Vectrex is such a mega system. I would also like, I know you can get them made up, I'd like an arcade stick, because these controllers only plug in like a joypad. You can get sort of arcade stick controllers custom made. I'd love one of them. That would be an excellent addition, I feel, to play it in this tabletop format, which is how I use it. You know, because you can see I've got other arcade sticks here, and it would be amazing to get that. So that's kind of on my list, but you don't see them very often, and they tend to be quite expensive. But that would be an awesome addition. But yeah, there we go. Anyway, I just thought I'd do a quick Vectrex collection video. But let me know, especially if you know of any good homebrew titles. It'd be good to hear what they were, because it's not something I've dabbled in too much. But yeah, have you got a Vectrex? Would you like a Vectrex? What other recommendations can you give me? Let me know. Thanks for watching. Hope to see you soon. And it's Donny the weekend. If you're going, be there or be square. Hope to see everybody there. And thanks for watching, like I say. See you next time. Sayonara.